and whenever you're ready.
Okay, boys and girls, we are going to try to talk about the first 4 chapters in Joshua. The chapters open with God telling Joshua, "My servant Moses is dead, and you're going to lead the people into the land that I have given them. The land of the Hittites and the Amorites, everywhere you step your foot will be the land that I will give to you. Be strong and courageous. And this book of the law that I have given you, do not let it depart from your heart or your mind, but you meditate on it. Don't turn to the right or to the left, but do everything that's written in the book of the law. Be strong and courageous." The text tells us after that, in Joshua 1, verses 10 and 11, that God tells Joshua, "I want you to speak to the leaders of the people, and I want you to tell them to go out and tell the people to get their belongings together, because in 3 days they're going to cross the Jordan River." So he does this. And then in verses 12 through 18, Marcus, if we want to look at the map, here is a map of the land of Israel, which we have used in some of your classes, young people. And here is the Jordan River. This blue line is the Jordan River, and it goes here into what the New Testament calls the Sea of Galilee, Lake Chinnereth, or the Sea of Chinnereth in the Old Testament. And it goes down and ultimately comes to the Dead Sea. But you notice that most of the tribes were on this side of the Jordan. Now, they haven't received that inheritance yet. They will receive that inheritance later in the book of Joshua. But notice there are 3 tribes, Reuben, Gad, and Manasseh, which are on the east of the Jordan River. The Jordan River separates these tribes from Reuben, Gad, and Manasseh. And Joshua goes in Joshua 1, verses 12 through 18, and he says, Reuben, Gad, and Manasseh, he said, remember what you promised. You promised that you would leave your livestock and you would leave your wives and you would leave your children behind, and that you would cross over the Jordan with your brothers and fight for your brothers until they have occupied their land, and then you can come back and occupy your land. And Reuben, Gad, and Manasseh said, that's right, we said that. And we're going to obey you. Just as we obeyed Moses, we're going to obey you. And may anyone be put to death who doesn't listen to your word. So the tribes of Reuben, Gad, and Manasseh show their faith and their trust in God. But before they go and cross the Jordan, Joshua has a mission. And Joshua sends 2 spies. He says, I want you to go and I want you to search out the land of Jericho. Search out the city of Jericho, for that's the first city that they were going to take. And these men come to the city of Jericho, and we'll focus away from the pictures just a second. Here are the walls surrounding Jericho, boys and girls. The walls surrounding Jericho. And cities in that time had walls to protect them from invasion, to protect them from the very thing that Israel is planning to do. Well, the Israelites find a woman who has a house right there in the city wall, and her name is Rahab. And Rahab receives these Israelite spies that came to her. Now, even then, in that time, when it wasn't as easy to communicate, they had a sophisticated network of spies. And what you find is that someone saw those Israelite men going into Rahab's house, and they knew what they were doing, that they were searching out the land of the city of Jericho. Well, they go and tell the king, and the king sends his soldiers to the house of Rahab. They knock on the door and they say, bring out those men, those Israelite spies that came to you, because they're coming to search out the land. And Rahab says, I didn't know where they came from, and I didn't know what they were doing. They left a good while ago. They wanted to leave before they closed the city gates to shut them in for the night. If you pursue them quickly, you may be able to overtake them. The soldiers all leave, but she has hidden the spies on the roof under flags. She has hidden the spies there. And she comes to those spies, and Rahab's speech that she gives in Joshua 2, verses 9 through 14, is very important in the context of this book. What she says, boys and girls, is, I know that your God has given you this city and this land. We have heard all that your God has done. We have heard how your God dried up the waters of the Red Sea and caused Israel to cross over again on dry land. We heard that. We heard that, and we have heard what your God did to Sihon and Og, the two kings of the Amorites. And the hearts of our people are melting with fear, because we know that God has given you the land. And I'm just asking this. I am asking that as I have shown loving kindness to you, that you show loving kindness to me and my family when God gives this city into your hand. That you save my wife, my mother, my father, my brothers, my sisters, that you save all of them. And the men said, if we take their lives, it will be our life in place of theirs. Now Rahab lets these spies down through her window with a rope. She tells them, you can leave now, and I want you to go and hide in the hill country for a few days until they quit looking for you, and then you can go back to the children of Israel. Now, we happen to have with us, boys and girls, that very rope by which she let down the Israelites. We knocked off some of the flags. And you understand, boys and girls, that we're being a little sarcastic about the same rope. But what happens is Rahab lets down the spies from her window with this rope. And as these spies are being let down, they say this. They said, we want you to keep this rope in your window. Keep this rope in your window so that we may know what house it is that we are not to kill anyone in. And said, what you need to do is you need to gather your mother and your father and all your brothers and sisters and all that belong to them that you want to save. You gather them in your house. And if they're in your house, we are not going to touch them. And if we do, it is our fault and their blood is on our hands. But if they're outside the house, their blood's on their own hand. It's kind of, boys and girls, like the Passover. God says, you put the blood on the doorpost and stay inside the house. And if you stay inside the house, I will spare you. But if you're outside the house, you'll be taken. This is kind of Rahab's Passover here in Joshua 2. But the men tell Rahab, if you tell anyone about what we're doing, we're free from this oath. And Rahab says, it's a deal. I won't tell anyone what you're doing. Now, the men go back to Joshua. They go back to Joshua, and they state, Joshua says, what happened? What did you learn there? And they said, the hearts of these people are filled with fear. They are filled with fear because they know that the Lord has given us the land. And so they spread that news among the Israelites. Now, it's time to cross the Jordan River. And here is the priest. Here the priest with the Ark of the Covenant covered with a blue cloth. And when they step into the Jordan, notice, boys and girls, how the waters divide. The waters divide. And here we have our replica of the Ark of the Covenant, an imperfect one, but it helps. And the priests carry it with the poles. They are careful not to touch the ark. And when they do, when they step into the Jordan River divides. The Jordan River comes and stands up in a heap. And the priests stand here in the middle of the Jordan, holding the Ark of the Covenant. They're holding the Ark of the Covenant while all Israel passes on dry land. And you notice, boys and girls, that there are 12 stones here. And God says, this fact, I have divided the Jordan before you, is a proof that the living God is dwelling with you. And the living God is going to give you this land, the land of your enemies. He's going to give it to you. And he chooses one man from every tribe. And these one men from tribes, they all pick up their rock. And they all carry their rock. And they set them up at Gilgal. Gilgal is the first place they encamp on the other side of the Jordan. And they set up these stones in Gilgal. And he said, there's going to be a day that your sons are going to ask you, what do these stones mean? And it's going to give you an opportunity to tell what God has done. You're going to tell them that the Jordan River was at flood stage and the Jordan River was overflowing it. But Joshua told the priest to step into the river, and the second they stepped into the river, that river was divided. That river was divided, and the people passed over on dry land, just like in Exodus 14 and 15. They left the land of Egypt and crossed the Red Sea on dry land. Now they're doing this to the land of Jordan. And in how Joshua, you're going to tell your sons of what God did, and how these men picked up these stones that were right there in the middle of the Jordan, and they set them up. They set them up at this encampment. So one day they will all see evidence of what the Lord did and how the Lord divided the Jordan, and the Lord let his people cross over on dry land. This is a proof to all the earth that God, the God of Israel, is the God of all. And it's interesting, in the first verse of Joshua 5, the Bible says that when the hearts of the kings in Canaan heard that the Lord had dried up the waters, their hearts melted in fear. Now, boys and girls, we tried to go over Joshua 1:1 to Joshua 5 verse 1. I encourage you to get your mother or father or grandfather or grandmother to read you this story, because always the Bible story is superior to our summary of it. But I want you to see how great God is. How great God is that he can divide the waters of the Jordan, that he can cause his people to cross over on dry ground, and that he can give memories to his people so that they will always remember the great things that God has done. Thank you, and God bless you.
And cut. All right.
How long was it?
Like